Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pruning to Prosper. I'm your host, Gina Morton, and this is the podcast where we prune away all the things standing between you and the woman that God has called you to be. Today's Bible passage that we're going to start with comes from the letter to the Romans, chapter 12, verse 2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that you may prove what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. Okay, the reason I picked this topic for today, or this Bible passage for today, was because I thought it was really good for this topic of little to no storage. How do you organize your house? Okay. Um, because I really feel like when you have a house with little to no storage, you have to not be conformed to the ways of this world. That's the easy answer. Okay. So the world is going to tell us we need more, more, more. We need an outfit for every day of the week. Our kids need all the latest things. We need 3 sets of sheets at least for every bed in the house. We need the full garage, the basement, the walk-in pantry, the walk-in closets in our bedrooms. And that's just not what you have if you're listening to this episode, right? So, 2 different times in my life, I have had a house with little to no storage. When we lived in Indiana, we didn't have a basement and we didn't have an attic. We did have a garage, but that was it. So, it was very minimal what my mom and dad could own because we didn't have extra storage. Then, when my husband and I got married, our very first house was built in 1928 and it had all the charm and character of an old house, but it also had hardly any closets. So my son and my daughter had a closet in their bedroom, but we did not. So we didn't even have a closet in our bedroom. And we had one little closet on the first floor for coats and things like that. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about truly living in a house with little to no storage. So I gotcha. Today we're going to talk about it. So when I begin any declutter project, okay, when I walk into a house that maybe I've never been into before, I always want to start with the positives. And I'm sure you've heard me say that if you've listened to a few episodes. We always begin with the positives, okay? Because we don't want to say, we're going to take out 55 bags of clutter. Like, no, I'm going to say, let's fill this closet with clothing that fits, flatters, and makes you feel fabulous, right? So that's how I speak to my clients. And that's how I'm going to speak to you today too. So we're going to start with we're going to start with the positives. So what I want you to do is walk into any room of your house where you feel like you could use some storage or, things are just not going as well as you would like them to go. Now, I want you to look around in that room and I want you to, you can even write it down or just take mental note. What do you have? What are the positives that you have going on in that room as far as storage goes? Now, by this, I mean they are permanent or semi-permanent solutions, okay? So do you have furniture that has drawers or a wardrobe that you can hang clothing? Do you have nightstands? Do you have under the bed space that you could do under the bed storage? Do you have drawers under your bed? Like I know my daughter has the IKEA bed that has 4 drawers underneath, and she literally could have her entire wardrobe under her bed. It's so big. She has a full-size bed, but it's like tons and tons of storage under that bed. So look at what you do have, okay? Notice I did not say, do you have all these bins and baskets and things hanging? No, 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 no. Like, do you have built-ins that you're working with? Like things that are semi-permanent, okay? Or that you've like kind of purchased that aren't easily replaceable. So that's your limit, okay? That's what you're working with. And if you're sharing that bedroom with your spouse, then that's what the both of you together have to work with, okay? Now, when I didn't have a closet in my bedroom, I had a wardrobe, which is a piece of furniture that had a mirror on the front. It was probably from, I think it was from like the 1920s. I still own it. It's a beautiful piece of furniture. And my husband hung 2 bars inside of that. And then on the bottom, it did have one drawer on the bottom. And I had a few drawers in a little dresser. And we did have under the bed storage, but my son's bedroom was connected to ours. Like we didn't have a hallway really upstairs. Like our upstairs was a big circle. Like they took out the hallways up there. It's like it was an old house that had a lot of owners. So we literally could see from our bedroom into my son's bedroom, and he had the closet. So my husband had his suits and all of his shoes and everything in my son's closet. And my son also had a chest of drawers. So with just those few little things, three of us had all of our clothes that we needed. And then I had this little like old, it was another antique piece of furniture in the hallway, in this other hallway that we did have upstairs. It was like they're called a jelly jar. I don't know if or jelly cabinet, if anyone knows what I'm talking about. And that's where I would store my towels and my sheets was in there. And it was really skinny and that was it. So those were my limits. So that's where I'm saying you cannot be conformed to this world because the world is going to tell you that that is not enough storage when really it is. Okay. If you went to any other country in the world, you would see that people do not have the closets that we have in the United States. So, yes, you will survive with less clothing. Okay. Now, notice I did not say, oh, check this link in the show notes for what you can buy on Amazon to store more stuff because the world is going to tell you you can have whatever you want. We're just going to buy more storage solutions. We're going to hang things over the doors. We're going to do things here. We're going to do this here. A lot of times, those things just look like clutter. Okay. So you have to really look at those things and say, what am I storing in there? Am I storing extras? Am I storing more than we can actually maintain in this house? Okay. So maybe you have a house where you can have one tube of toothpaste and everyone has one toothbrush and that's it. You know, you don't have a house where you can store three extra tubes of toothpaste. Okay. So you have to deal with what you do have. That is my number one piece of advice for any home with any storage. Okay. Let me give you another example of what we did in our old house that didn't have any storage. So in my dining room, I had a big china closet. Now, this is why in the old days, people had big furniture like this. And you could go on Facebook Marketplace, I'm sure today, and find a free china closet because people don't want them anymore and they are so hard to get rid of. So, but they were very useful because they were from an era where people didn't have a ton of storage in their homes. So they literally had a china closet or china cabinet, whatever you want to call them. But that's what I had in my old house. And it is pretty big. I still have it in this house. And the upper part that had glass over it is where I stored my pretty china. So you could always see my china. It was on display. The bottom is closed door cabinets. And that's where we would have all of my kids' art supplies and office stuff that we needed. So we didn't have like an office. We didn't have a playroom. We didn't have a kitchen table. I had my dining room was the only room I had where we ate. So my dining room table had to work double, triple duty for everything. And the kids would paint there. They would do arts and crafts there. They would do homework there. We would eat there. And then at the end of the day, everything was tucked nicely underneath the china closet in the closed cupboards. And we made it work. You know, you can't, you just have to say, our kids aren't going to have 55 of every different toy. But you know what? They're going to have some really special toys, and we're going to store them either on an open shelf or we're going to put them in a basket or you're going to, you know, put them somewhere that the kids can play with them easily, but you're not going to have a whole room probably. Okay. Maybe you want that glass coffee table, but the reality of your house is you need your furniture to work double duty. So instead of a glass coffee table, you have a trunk that you can use to store your Christmas decorations or you can store toys or extra things. Okay. You probably don't have the luxury of having different throw pillows and different throw blankets for every season of the year. Okay. Maybe your home is more neutral and you have one or two of those items and that's it. But that's okay. You know, like you probably have such a better life because you're not managing so much stuff. I know when we had our old house, I I still feel like I was a better mom in that house because I had to say no. I like my kids, they learned no very quickly because we just didn't have the room for all the things that they wanted all the time. Even books. I love books, but we didn't have room for my kids to have a ton of books. So we were at the library every week and we walked to the library. And we didn't have room in our backyard for a swing set. So we walked to the park every time or we rode bikes. And it was just a lifestyle that is not of this world. And I'll tell you, it was a beautiful life. And I could clean that house in a matter of an hour or two from top to bottom. And it was just such a great life. And everything had to be simple. Okay, so that's another example. If you don't have a lot of storage, even things like what you're making for dinner, you probably don't have the room to have all these exotic spices or ingredients. Like, I would encourage you to shop for the day and make it an outing and say, what are we eating tonight? And that's what you're going to do. Like, you're not, or you have just very few spices that can pull double, triple duty. Okay. Like, you don't really need a ton of spices. You can do so much with just salt and pepper and garlic and olive oil and that sort of thing, some butter. So I hope that answers any questions. I don't remember where this question came from. It might be from another one of the Facebook questions, but yeah. So if you have little to no storage, begin with what you do have, begin in the positive, and then those are your limits. Okay. Don't just keep buying more storage stuff because you can. Okay. Because that's going to become clutter in and of itself. All right. Minimize, minimize, minimize. Use this when you get tugs to, from the world saying you need more, more, more. Use that as a almost like a call to prayer and just say, God, help me to be happy with what I have. Help me to love the home that I do have. Help me to be satisfied with what we do have. And I hope that helps you love your home, because I know if you have an old house, it's probably so awesome. And it's just one of the things that we have to give up to have like the love of an old house or a house in a certain part of the country. Have a great day. Don't forget, if you want to work with me one-to-one, I do offer virtual coaching and my calendar is in the show notes. Have a great day.